is Irina Skaya, and you're listening to the Balaker podcast.
All right, thank you once again for tuning in to the Matt Balaker podcast, where we're joined by our executive producer and co-host, who is so millennial, he thinks he can bring his dog as a +1 to his friend's wedding. Please welcome Eric Savone. How you doing, Eric?
Thanks. That is my one millennial opinion. I said that specifically in my tweet. This is my one millennial opinion, is that I want to be able to bring my dog wherever you can bring your kid.
Well, we're joined by a very badass millennial. This is a comedian I adore. She's a hilarious stand-up. She's a theatrically trained Ukrainian immigrant. And instead of taking on college debt, she worked at a British strip club to help pay for her schooling. She's one of my favorite human beings. Please welcome Irina Skaya to the program. How you doing?
Hi, thank you for having me. What an intro. Wow.
I like to start really high and then just nosedive from there on out. So we're at the peak right now.
I try to forget those things, but you just keep reminding me.
So for the listeners out there and the viewers who may be unfamiliar with your story, you were born in Ukraine, and when you're about 4 years old, you moved with your family to Arizona. And I understand a few weeks ago, you went back to Ukraine. So we're all wondering why.
I went back to Ukraine to do a comedy show. I brought Louis C.K. to Kiev. We were working on this contract for 2 years to get, and he would be the first American comedian in Ukraine. The 2 years before that, COVID, so that was canceled. And then, we're like, okay, February, it's going to happen. And then the day of the show is when the war started.
Buzzkill.
Yeah, I know, right? And he was still like, I'm gonna do the show. I'm gonna do it. And we were like, no, you're not gonna do it. And then the war started, and that was it.
So that was it. And how, when did you go back there? Let's talk dates.
Oh God, I don't remember dates at all. Probably maybe 5-6 days after it started.
Oh my gosh. And I know weeks before the war began, there were news alerts saying, get out of here. Yeah. And you went to it.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
I'm stupid. They warned people, and a lot of Ukrainians and a lot of Americans were like, Putin is just peacocking and trying to scare people, don't take it seriously. And even when it happened, people were like, no, he's just bluffing.
He's just being Vladdy. That's what he does.
Yeah. He's really committed to the bit. I don't know, something clicked in my head, and I was like, I have to now, I think I can help. I think I can help these people. My whole family lives there. Immediate family is in Arizona, but all family, uncles, aunts, cousins, they all live in Ukraine. And I was calling them, hey, you have to leave. What can I get you? How can I help? And they were like, we're not going anywhere. We'll fight them or we'll die.
Wow.
Wow. Okay. So since you're staying, maybe I can help in some way. So I started finding people online who were doing food deliveries, medicine deliveries, evacuations, and talked with a bunch of people, met a bunch of people online. But there was one guy who just stood out amongst all the evacuators, Alex. And I just knew that I had to help him. He had a really successful car business, and he put all that.
He was rich, and I realized I had to help him.
No. So I started, sending him money. Had help from another organization here, and they sent him money, and we started buying vans, and we started paying for these evacuations because gas was getting really expensive, and you're evacuating, we're talking sometimes 15 hours, right? to the Polish border, or, you know, maybe even a closer city like Lviv. So I just kept supporting him and helping him. And then I knew I had to, you know, go to Ukraine.
You're so much more badass than I'll ever be. I'm very, very like I think I hashtagged my support.
Did you? Okay.
So I care too, Irina, is my point. Like we're kind of two peas in the pod.
Yeah,
So
I got your thoughts and prayers.
oh, thank you. So I think that's why you're doing so well. I don't want to take full credit, but I really should. So where in Ukraine are your family members?
Oh, like everywhere. Kiev, Kharkov, Kherson, Lviv, and now they've kind of moved around. Some of them eventually did go to the Czech Republic, but they didn't want to. It was forced basically. And then the majority of them are still in Kiev at their homes, just getting Molotov cocktails ready.
Yeah. What's your favorite recipe? And what's the proper pronunciation of Kiev? I'm sure I'm butchering it, but can you educate
Kiev.
us American listeners? Kiev.
Yeah, Kiev. Mm-hmm.
And so you arrived there, and like, had you been in a war zone before? I mean, like, what were you expecting, and what was the reality?
I was a girl in high school, so I did see. No, I've never been to a war zone, but I wasn't. I'm not trying to like be tough. I wasn't scared. Like, this is just a situation you're in, and don't do stupid. Keep your eyes out, see what's around you, and be careful what you say, and just be smart about how you operate. That's it.
Like, being smart how you operate, that sounds great, but do you really know when missiles are going to be landed or like shot at you? Like,
no, but Ukraine is a country of 35, 40 million people. So the odds that a missile will hit me are pretty low.
It's funny, like that's pretty much the identical population of California, and Ukraine would kick California's ass in what, like 4.5 seconds? Would you like? Now that I've seen like what they're dealing with and where I live, it wouldn't be a very fair fight at all.
Were you surprised to see what Ukraine is capable of?
Yeah, I wish I could say no, because like my mom is from not terribly far from there. She was now Slovenia, and I know from relatives and people around there, they kind of grow up more in the Bosnia area with like bombs going off, but still, you think in 2022, if there's warning that, okay, there's impending war, you have a window to get out of Dodge, most people would bolt. And like, I know you, and I know some other Ukrainians, but like, I don't think I can speak for the whole 40 million of you all.
The amount of people who stayed and said, we're fighting, we don't even know how to fight, but we'll fight. This is our country, and you're on sovereign territory, right? So what do you fight for if not freedom? It sounds so cliche, but to be free.
Followers, retweets. Why
do you think I'm doing this podcast? That I think that's the most beautiful thing, right? Your freedom, the ability to be safe in your own country, right? It would be like us invading Canada or Canada invading us. I hope the majority of people would fight. I hope.
Yeah. Sorry, I was talking to my dad, that he was a Vietnam combat vet. And I remember when the whole like Afghanistan thing went down, he was just like so pissed. He's like, there's so many men who just don't have the balls to fight for their country. And like Ukraine is a case study of the opposite, where it's like, it's not just, it's men, women, they're all like kind of shoulder to shoulder fighting. And I'm glad to hear it from you, because I don't really know what the reality is. I'll read news articles, and obviously there's going to be an American spin on it. There's probably a Ukrainian version, but what is it like? In terms of like, there's a day-to-day life, but then when shit goes down, like how do people fight? Who are civilians?
So there are certain people, and I don't know if there's some sort of like brain damage, but if there is a bomb, I run towards it. And again, I think that's like something messed up in my brain. I used to
It is, yeah.
maybe I have like CT or something, but there is a missile strike. I'm going to run towards it because I know there are people who have to get out, who need help getting out. And it's like fight or flight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the reason so many of my relationships are so successful, because I would not flight, I would fight. Don't do that. Know that he is right and smarter and better than you. But the majority of people are either staying in their homes, they are going into bunkers. So a lot of the train stations have been turned into shelters. And to me, like, that's scarier, right? You're in a shelter, and then, let's say there's a missile and everything just shakes, right? And if, God forbid, it collapses, how are you going to get out of there? So I decided to stay in really low populated areas, like 10,000 people or less, because I know that's not going to be a target for them.
Right.
And I was moving so much, during these evacs, during all the meetings, I wasn't in one place, so it would be hard to hit a moving target, because Russia can't really hit anything. They have terrible aim. But the people who don't know how to fight, who maybe are pacifists, they've a way to really be so helpful in this war, whether it's translating for the American doctors, whether it's helping refugees cross the border, or even in the military, helping to connect Americans with Ukrainians. So not everyone has to be a fighter. There are so many ways you could help, and you don't have to pick up a gun. But seeing these famous Ukrainian musicians and artists take up arms, it was so moving. I've never been more proud of my country.
Oh, well, they're proud of you. The country's proud. I can tell that. So did you have to go through any like real life evacuations when you're there, or were they just drills, or what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, so when the sirens go off, the rule is like, go in shelters, but I didn't do any of those. I don't know why. I won't go in a shelter. I like it's more of a target, I guess. So I wasn't evacuated, but we were evacuating people, right? So setting up evacuations to go to a meeting point and pick up people in a van and, take them to safer places. And just being around that and seeing that, and that I will never forget that. That is, that's going to stay with me forever. Just, can you imagine leaving your home and, you don't know if you're going to come back, right? A lot of these people had to leave animals. A lot of these people had to leave sick relatives who couldn't leave. It's so jarring, and they didn't want to go. A lot of people think that, oh, okay, Ukraine's getting a free ride to go into Western Europe. None of them wanted to go. They all stay in Ukraine. And actually now there's a huge issue because a lot of Ukrainians are coming back into Ukraine.
Oh.
Like 45 days, like, I'm good. I'm going to.
Like, I don't want to be in Poland that much longer. It's boring there.
So, they're actually coming back in. So I wasn't evacuated. I was also around a lot of military guys, American military, former military, and Ukrainian military. When I got on the ground, I connected really quickly to like the sniper team and to territorial defense. And
Sorry, wait, time out. How do you just know the sniper team and territorial defense? Like, did you text them? Like, you got to give us some details.
My dad was military in Ukraine, and he had a really big contact, and we got together on Facebook, and he was the one who started giving me places to go to, people to meet. I ended up buying these vans for the snipers because their vans kept getting, hit. So they would, blow up or, be shot up. So I saw where I could be useful. I'm not a fighter like that. So I know I could be logistically, right? I have connections in America. I will make connections in Europe, and I'll be able to send them whether it's food, supplies, military boots, vans. That's where I found that I'm actually really good at that. And I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but yeah.
I would vote good.
Okay. So I did feel safe. I did. The one thing I thought about that might be dangerous is there were a lot of Russians who were doing these small terrorist attacks, right? So they would go into a mall, or they would go into, a hospital or a library and, start killing people. So I was worried about that more.
I think that's a good thing to worry about.
Yeah. So I had to be, very vigilant about that. And also a lot of the Russian FSB, they're like KGB, they were in Poland. So when Americans or volunteers were crossing in, sometimes they would, capture them and, threaten them or try to figure out what they were going to do in Ukraine, try to get information from them. So that was also, a fear, because some of my friends had a knife to their throat, and they were asked what are you doing here? And they're like, oh, we're just, humanitarian. And it's like, if you see their tattoos, you'll know they're not humanitarian, but, so yeah, they let them go. But that's what I was afraid of, this sort of one-off situations.
Wow. So as best as you know, what is the end point for Russia? I mean, what do they want? I'm curious.
I think if he knew what he wanted, it's so, if the majority of Russian people and the majority of people, oligarchs in Russia who are in the Duma, don't understand what is going on, then this man just decided to do this on his own, really without kind of anyone. And that's why a lot of the soldiers weren't ready. That's why their military is still suffering, but suffered so greatly in the beginning, because it's almost like he just woke up and had some sort of bipolar,
episode.
Episode. Yeah. We don't know, because what does winning look like, right? So he can't come back now to Russia and say, okay, I'm done, right? So he has to, there are concessions. So my thinking is he's going to annihilate Mariupol. Actually, we just got some information from intelligence that they're probably going to take all the men and just kill them, and then they'll take the women and children into Russia or into Siberia. Right now, I mean, 20,000, if not, probably more people have been killed in Mariupol. And it's a city that's really close to Russia. It's, by the kind of Crimea, Donbass area. And that, I mean, the abuse that those people are going through, 45 days of being shelled and being shot at, there's no electricity, there's no water, people are just dying of hunger, right? They're not burying people, they're just throwing them in their front yard. The library is now, it says morgue, right? It is hell on earth. It is absolute hell on earth. So what does winning look like for him? I guess maybe he destroys all of Mariupol and he says, we have all of Mariupol, Crimea's ours, Donbass, Lugansk area, they're now ours. And really that's it, because Ukraine will not give him what he wants, which is lay down all your arms, no military. What country would agree to those terms, right? It's insane. And, he'd probably want to put a puppet president in there.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what winning looks like. No one knows how many days. But Russia, by the way, is in so much shit. They don't have enough. They don't produce a lot, right? So they don't have enough to even give people new credit cards, right? Like the plastic for credit cards, they don't have that. But I think most of all is they don't have the silicone anymore for the breast implants. And I mean, it is a joke, but it's not. So, and I think once those women realize they're not going to be able to have any more, boob jobs, I think that's when the men are really going to sort of stand up and say, we need to put an end to this.
This is the final straw.
Yeah.
I don't like natural titties. We got to do something.
And the other thing is wheat. So they bring a lot of wheat in from other countries. And now that so isolated, they're more isolated than they were during, the communist era, during, when it was the USSR. They're so isolated. They won't get wheat. Their food supply is just going to shrink to nothing. But I also know that just like Stalin, Putin has this idea of you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. And by eggs, he was referring to his own people, right? So even if my people are suffering, it's for the greater good, right? I know people were saying he's not going to, they were in Chernobyl, right? Yeah, the Russians took Chernobyl and they were so afraid that he would, drop some sort of, chemical bomb or nuclear. And other people were saying no, because it's too close to Russia and his people would get killed. Yeah, he doesn't care. He doesn't care if his people get killed or our people get killed because he wants territory, right? For a Soviet leader, when you die, what they look at is how much territory you've acquired, even if that territory is rubble.
Wow. So I'm curious because you're an American as well, with lots of family in Ukraine. How would you categorize America's response to the war in Ukraine?
Am I allowed to take out my list of bad words now?
Sure.
No. People individually have been amazing. There are so many Americans who just left everything and said, I'm going to Ukraine and I'm going to help them. And that's amazing to see that. So whenever I hear anyone who is coming into Ukraine to help, I always try to find them either before they come in or when they get in and set them up with living, food, transportation, because they're leaving everything to help us and they don't have to. So that response has been just so heartwarming to see. And then there are companies and there are organizations that are collecting first aid. They're collecting, IFAX kits, tourniquets, and just shipping them to Ukraine. And that's been amazing too. Seeing my flags everywhere, yellow flags, has been really makes me smile. But as a whole, militarily, I don't know if that's a word, militarily.
Yeah, I think so.
Not very impressed. I know they said, what are we at? 20 trillion of aid, but we're not going to see all of that. And it's not going to come to us right away. And some of that is going back to replenish, the javelins that they sent us, or the stingers. So I know people are afraid of Russia, and they shouldn't be, because once everyone sees, this is a paper tiger, what is there to be afraid of?
I think nuclear weapons would be the response.
I keep asking it. Okay, so that one makes sense. Yeah. I have a feeling that they're broken. Nothing it's all made in China, so I'm not surprised. But I guess, yes, that is a fear, but I don't want to live in fear. And he's a bully, and he's not going to Ukraine. That's the other thing. People are saying it's not our war. It will be. Just give it some time, because it's not going to stop with Ukraine, right? And he thought that because they took Crimea kind of easily, that Ukraine would be the same way, just a few days. But because America has been training Ukrainians, and that I do love that response. America Ukrainians for years. NATO has been training them. That's beautiful. But I think NATO should have signed this already. Ukraine should have been protected by NATO, and I think America should have taken a hardline stance. But again, I'm not stupid. I know that could be the beginning of World War III. So they have to help Ukraine, but also maybe look like they're not really helping Ukraine. So how many people have to die before you can loudly say, we're going to stop this?
Yeah, it's a good question. And do you think the U.S. could stop it?
I think Russia could have stopped it. I think they should have Gaddafi'd him years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I do think America could stop it. I do think the response from Europe and America together could stop it, but Europe is so reliant on Russian oil.
Oh.
And you saw right away who was in bed with Putin when the sanctions were passed. And so there were countries in Germany and who were like, but we get a lot of stuff from Russia, and maybe we can say no to the war in Ukraine, but maybe work with Russia.
Yeah.
And you have to just draw a line in the sand. I don't think America should send troops. I know we just got out of Afghanistan and people have nightmares about that. But I think they can help us with more weapons and just more stingers, javelins, drones, like the switchblades that Ukraine just got. If we could get more of those, that'd be great. What do you guys think about this close the sky over Ukraine?
This sounds like something Eric really has a strong opinion. So this is the basically don't patrol the sky.
Yeah, NATO, you're asking NATO to close the sky so that, Russian missiles can't fire and, Russian.
Yeah, it seems like if in order to do that, that's sort of like you'd be shooting down Russian aircraft. And I mean, like on one hand you say, well, it's a defense space, but I think that could quickly, and again, I'm probably the least qualified person to discuss. I think that could escalate to like a World War III situation. And I guess the counter, and again, I don't think there's a real good right or wrong answer always, is like maybe it'll get that way anyway, and it would just get worse. I don't know.
This is where America was actually very right. They were warning Ukraine for about a year. The problem is Russia didn't know, the Russian troops didn't know when the war would start. I think Putin didn't tell anyone, but America knew that Russia was going to war with Ukraine.
Yeah, well, one thing I can say with reasonable confidence, and me being a military intelligence expert, means a lot, is from the beginning, America was very clear, like, we're not going to put, troops on the street, or boots on the floor, whatever, however you want to phrase it. And it's like, why say that? Like, maybe it could have been avoided just by like not tipping your hand. Like, maybe if Putin thought there'd be a bunch of American troops waiting for that, none of this would happen. I mean, I don't know, but that seems like a pretty easy, relatively cost-effective method to maybe stop it or slow it down, but I don't know for sure.
I think the phrase is boots on the table. I think that's the correct boots in a barn. I think that's
boots in a barn. Yeah, that's the slogan these days.
Did you guys see those photos and videos out of Bucha when they so Russia took this town, it's in northern Ukraine, Bucha, and then Ukraine took it back, and the amount of atrocities that were revealed. Did you guys see anything about that?
No, this is the first I've heard.
Oh yeah, I'll send you these links. No, I mean, no, because I want you to sleep at night, but these are war crimes. The number of now pregnant teenagers in Ukraine is just it's growing by scary amounts, because the Russian soldiers don't just occupy a town, they do everything to that town. The torture chambers that they opened, the amount of people that they just executed and threw in wells. Yeah, it's I don't know what needs to happen, because every horrible thing you can think of that a human can do to another human has been done. So I don't know what more needs to happen for support for Ukraine.
Sorry, I'm speechless. You're right. I mean, I think some of it is we don't know. I mean, like when you not that we can't imagine, but like you personalized it so well, and it's like sometimes a photograph is worth way more than a million articles. Like when we see atrocities like this, or we see women or young girls being raped and pillaged, and like that makes it so real and so personal and so human that, I mean, maybe it's instances like that will turn the tides.
Yeah, it's actually that's what I'm trying to do. So when I go back, I want to bring a film crew with me as well, and but document everything in real time and interview the women that were raped, interview the men that were, tortured, just barely like hanging on to life. Because maybe the idea is it's so big, we can't do anything, or it's, from us, right? But if you, like you said, personalize it and just maybe show a family, they just went door to door shooting anyone. Also, I will say, people say, well, Ukraine and Russia are brother and sister. We've never been brother and sister. They have been hurting our people for hundreds of years. And the difference between, I would say, Ukrainians and Russians, Russian soldiers aren't just doing the most horrific things to people, but they're also shooting dogs. They're also just indiscriminately murdering animals. Why do that? That's not part of your command. So you really have to be soulless and have no heart to decide, I'm going to kill this family and also all of their animals. That's that they go above and beyond.
There's no strategic benefit to murdering animals.
Yeah, so that's the difference is Ukrainian people have a soul, and we have this fire and zest for life. I don't know if you've seen any of these videos. Like these became my favorite, where that old woman gives the soldier like sunflower seeds. Have you? I gotta send it to you. So the Russian soldiers are standing in line. Sorry, hey, stop. That's my child. Standing in line, making sure Ukrainians don't go through. And this Ukrainian woman comes up to him and she says, what are you doing here? And he says, ma'am, go inside the house. And she says, this is not your land. And he's like, ma'am, I don't want to argue with you. And she says, well, make yourself useful. Put these sunflower seeds in your pocket, because when you die, then at least something good can come out of your, from the earth, like, basically your father. So at least fertilize these sunflower seeds, right?
Yeah.
Like just these stories, and they're real. Like even Ghost of Kiev, which I hope it's real because I've been writing him so many letters. Like they said, there's a MiG pilot that is just, shot down like 50 Russian planes, and just all these funny stories. Snake Island, where Russia tried to capture this island, and they said, you need to surrender. And the captain said, Russian warship, go fuck yourself. It was like
I remember.
Yeah, the life that Ukrainian people possess, and just the will to live, and this fire and this fight. If Russia lays down their arms, the war will be over. If Ukraine lays down their arms, Ukraine will be gone.
I think that summarizes it pretty well. What once the war started, Zelensky was like the biggest celebrity ever in America. Like his star couldn't be higher. And I know that's probably the most important thing to consider right now, but what is the reality? Like in Ukraine, how is he viewed, and how would you compare or contrast that to how we view him in the States? So
I think before, people either had no opinion on him, or they're pretty neutral. And when it started, talk about a sex symbol, right? Like this comedian, I think he's like 5'7", 5'8", right? And you think just this nice, quiet, polite guy, but he has the heart of a lion. And the people of Ukraine just now view him as such a hero, because he could have left so many times. And when they asked him to, he said, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition, right? Like he could have left, and people wouldn't have even said anything. He's the president, he should leave, he should be safe, but he stayed, and he's on the ground with the soldiers, and he's going to the hospitals, and he's meeting with people. I know they were talking about giving him a Nobel Peace Prize, and I hope they do, because that man has shown what dignity, and how that you can lead with grace and dignity, and you can choose love over fear. And I think Americans really like him, and I think Americans are seeing for the first time in a long time what a leader is and what a leader could look like. And yeah, he's just are you a fan of his?
Yeah, but admittedly, I know an image of him that I get through news articles. Like, for instance, that when you said, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition, I've heard so many counters to that. Like, he didn't actually say that. And my thinking, Irina, is like, I don't really care. He's there with like bullets flying. And there's some like kind of picky uni things. Like, for instance, I heard, and I could be wrong, but please correct me if I am, that like men are kind of bound by law to be there. And I think that's like, to me, that seems kind of dictatorial and Stalin-like in a way, you know. And again, these are awful situations, but I mean, I would much prefer, and again, like, my opinion matters, but that these men are there because they want to be. I think it's a little different when it's a matter of force.
I know that if men wanted to get out of the country, like even in the beginning, they were letting anyone out. Then probably a month after the war, they said, men have to stay. But there are groups that will take men out, for, you pay a certain price and they'll help you cross the border. I don't see men wanting to leave. Even when they said, now you have to stay, the amount of men that were leaving didn't change. That number didn't change.
That's awesome. Yeah. And that I love. I don't know if he's democratic, and again, part of it doesn't really matter. I mean, he has a country to save, but I mean, that's kind of when dictatorships happen. It's like things get really bad and then like laws kind of fly out the window.
And look, we can't evacuate the whole country. That's impossible. And I'm a bit even, I don't like that, my group, we evacuate people, but I try to evacuate them to safer parts of Ukraine. I don't want to keep shipping everyone out of Ukraine. I don't think that's the answer. But I also know men who maybe, again, aren't fighters. They can still be very useful in this war effort, whether
Absolutely.
It's delivering groceries, delivering medicine, helping. We evacuated these orphanages, right? And there were so many men there who, you could tell they're not fighters, but they were helping these kids get onto the bus and, making them feel less nervous and less scared. It's the amount of men, as a matter of fact, it's actually increased because so many Ukrainian men came back. The ones who maybe moved to Western Europe and even the ones in America, they flew back to Ukraine to fight for Ukraine because it's an honor. For me, it's an honor.
That's awesome. And what do you recommend that people here in the US do to help?
Please do not send money to big organizations. Do not, I'm begging you, do not do it. A lot of those big organizations don't work with Ukrainian people. So they receive this huge funding and it never goes to Ukraine. It either stays in Poland or it takes months for any of the food to be distributed. I can send you a list, but there are 4 or 5 really great nonprofits, Ukrainians who are working with Americans, Nova, Razon, it's RAZON, helppeople.org.ua that are working with the people of Ukraine, and dollar for dollar, where it's going and how it's being received by people. So yeah, I mean, I feel bad telling people, don't do this, but don't.
Yeah.
You don't know where your money is going. And the other thing is, people who want to come to Ukraine and help, I'm begging you, make sure you have living figured out. Make sure you have transportation figured out, because a lot of resources now are being allocated to making sure Americans who came to help are being taken care of. And that, it's kind of not why they're there, right? They want to help, but because they don't know the language or they don't know the people, they just show up to Ukraine and they don't know how to get around. So my group spends a lot of time also helping Americans navigate Ukraine and helping them, so we can put them in a position where they would be useful. So please if you want to come to Ukraine and help, or even Poland, that would be amazing, but just get in touch with an organization or have a plan before you come into the country, or at least call me. I'll set it up for you.
Well, we'll put her links, and we'll put the links to those organizations that you recommend. So we're wrapping up, but what positive things do you hope? I mean,
Is this a comedy podcast?
I mean, I know you'll hopefully get a lot of stage time when you're back there, but what's the best case scenario?
Actually, I do want to open a club there. When this is all over, I want to open a comedy club, and I want to bring American comedians to Ukraine. And
Yay.
yeah, what better way to just, give Putin the middle finger than forming small dick jokes about him and about Lukashenko and Kadyrov. So I really want to open a club over there. I don't know if you saw, I'm not sure what town it was in. I can send you the photo, but some comedians just found like a stage, and there was 100 people in the audience, and they did a comedy show, and it was so just beautiful to see that photo. Even in this dark time, they're still finding humor, not humor, but maybe light or a reason to live. To me, it's coming back to Arizona and listening to people argue in a line about, you cut in front of me, or, I'm ahead of you, or how dare you. It really opens my eyes, because in Ukraine, they're fighting about where are we going to get water, where are we going to get food, is our family still alive, right? So I think America and other countries saw what it means to defend and love your country, and that it's okay, and it doesn't make you a Nazi, to stand for the values of your country and to really fight for something you believe in. I think that the world kind of woke up, and they saw this David and Goliath story, and just the fact that we're kicking Russia's ass. I love it. It should inspire every country. It should inspire Taiwan, which it does. And that's what, worries China. But it should be an inspiration to every person who feels like they're being, attacked, or trying, this bigger country trying to destroy them, right? Like, so many people discounted Ukraine and said, like, sorry guys, Russia's going to take you. And just to see this, I don't know, not this surprise, I guess, it's just been amazing.
Well, you said it heartfully and beautifully, and there's really nothing to add to that. You were a badass before, but now you're officially one. So thank you so much for joining us, and let's do it again from Ukraine very soon. Thank you, Irina.
About a week, I can call you guys from there, and if you want to come visit Poland, Ukraine, I'll take you around.
Look forward to it.
Yeah, your wife wouldn't let you. I know. I keep hearing that.
No, she might. I don't know.
She would actually require it.
Yes.
No,
yeah.
Go to Ukraine. Thank you so much for having me. And I'll call you guys from Ukraine, and hopefully all the windows will be intact when I call you.
Thank you.